What is going on, Fightful Faithful? Welcome back to another interview here with myself, Corey Brennan. Today, I am sitting down with the man behind one of the best promotions in the world today. I think definitely one of the top promotions in Europe in Revolution Pro Wrestling, Andy Quildan. How are you doing today, Andy?
I'm doing very good, thanks. Just very busy gearing up for the busiest summer that we've ever had, but just motivated and excited, and looking forward to some great wrestling which is to come.
And undoubtedly, there will be some great wrestling to come. And we'll start off a little with Summer Sizzler this weekend. Very big event. The card was recently announced, and I have to say, when I saw the card, I was like, "Wow!" Just completely stacked card, even with the 12th anniversary show just around the corner. And we'll start off with the big news for that card in MJF defending the AEW United or US Championship against Michael Oku. And Michael's very much found himself as kind of the face of Revolution Pro Wrestling, at least from the outside point of view. And this just is another example of him stepping up and being the representative of Revolution Pro. And do you feel like, as the man behind the promotion, that Michael has kind of stepped into the role that Will Ospreay previously held since Will
Um,
left?
yeah, I think it's very, very different roles. But I do think that the torch was clearly passed to Michael in February. But really, when you talk about being a representative for the company, whoever the undisputed British heavyweight champion is the flag bearer for that company, and is a great representative. And Michael Oku has been a tremendous ambassador for RevPro, and very much a personification of what Revolution Pro Wrestling stands for, in the sense of we're very much a DIY professional wrestling promotion. We started from the ground, we worked our way up. When people said we couldn't, we said, we can, we will. Watch this space. And we've continued to grow and continue to evolve. And that's what's happened with Michael Oku in his career here in Revolution Pro Wrestling as well. He's continued to grow, evolve, defy all odds, and go from someone who at the start just wanted to be a contender, but now he's become a history maker. He obviously handles himself very well, and he takes great pride in everything he does. And it's no coincidence that all the best wrestlers in the world want to compete against him. It's MJF that made the call to compete against Michael Oku, and there's obviously a reason for that. So he's certainly someone we can be very proud of. But really, realistically speaking, he's one of many names that we can be proud of, because we're currently at a stage whereby the depth is deeper than it's ever been before, and there's just so many young and hungry wrestlers who understand the responsibility that's on their shoulders to wave the flag for Revolution Pro Wrestling and for British wrestling. And it's just great that the world is starting to take notice. And make no mistake, you said about him taking the torch from Will Ospreay, or that's kind of how I kind of termed it. But Will Ospreay is one of those people who laid that foundation. One of those people that, because of him, because of his body of work, it's kind of put more eyeballs on our product, and it's made us more relevant. And it's given a platform for people like Michael Oku, for people like Luke Jacobs, and then the rest of our roster to be able to shine.
And you mentioned that they're getting more eyeballs on the promotion and the wrestlers involved. But there has been the case of the AEW has been very involved with RevPro, I would say, in terms of just working with you guys and lending talent. Like, for example, Orange Cassidy was at high stakes. Tony Khan himself was at high stakes. Will Ospreay being allowed to finish off his dates, have that goodbye. And now, obviously, MJF coming in and defending the AEW title. US title. What's that been like to kind of work with AEW, work with Tony Khan, and have these talents come in and show their stuff in RevPro?
Listen, with all our partners, it's a pleasure to be able to work with them, and it all comes from a mutual respect for one another. And I think that we have that with AEW, and I love collaborating with AEW. I respect everything they've achieved and everything they're continuing to achieve, their ambition, and their place in the market as disruptors. It's inspiring. I've said it before, I'll say it again. It's inspiring, and I think that a testament to AEW is what we're 5 years in now, and there's been people writing them off time and time again, and they keep coming back swinging, and they dare to dream. And I think that, realistically speaking, put yourself in a position 5 years ago when AEW formed, and think about you know people didn't believe that AEW would be able to run shows consistently the size of which they've been able to run week in, week out. And they've done it. And like, even you can look at it, say, oh, ticket sales are a bit soft at the moment. But if you were to look at where ticket sales are now compared to the projections at the start, it would blow your mind, to think that anyone other than WWE is able to stand up and do that on that level on a consistent basis, let alone, the pay-per-view business they've done. And look, for in many people's minds, the pay-per-view industry is dead. Obviously, UFC proved that wrong, but essentially when WWE cannibalized their pay-per-view business, moving to the WWE network, that took people into a mindset of, people will no longer pay this money for these big pay-per-views. But AEW is proving time and time again that if you put on a consistent, high-quality product, then people will pay to watch it. And that's, that's inspiring. And I said, like, obviously, I know we're on the subject of Summer Sizzler right now, but for me, I look at just their mindset in running Wembley Stadium. They could have run something smaller than that, but they went for the highest hanging fruit, and they tried to make something happen. And to me, again, that's inspiring. That's what encourages me. That's what gives me the confidence to say, look, we could run a smaller show. We could run one of our regular venues when AEW are in town. But no, let's run the Copper Box Arena. Let's go for the biggest show we can run. And we wouldn't do that without AEW. We wouldn't have a confidence to do that without AEW. And it's almost like that confidence that they have, or that ambition that they have, that fearlessness that they have, it's infectious, so from that perspective, I respect the hell out of everything they're doing, and consistently raising the bar in the quality of professional wrestling around the world. And you can say what you like, you can say WWE are on a hot streak at the moment, and absolutely they are. But do you think that WWE would be on the hot streak that they're on right now if it wasn't for AEW pushing them every step of the way? It forced them to check themselves and improve what they were doing, because what they were doing was not good enough. And now it's created this environment where we've got quality TV every single week from both major promotions. And it's just an exciting time to be around, and to be able to work with AEW, for them to, treat us with a semblance of respect, and for them to help us with opportunities like this, allowing MJF to compete at one of our events in the UK 2 weeks before the biggest show in AEW, allowing, even last year, I know that he wanted it, but Will Ospreay was on Wembley Stadium. He competed for us 24 hours before. I'm sure if Tony Khan wanted, he could have said, hey, listen, Will, if you want to do Wembley Stadium, come on, man, you're gonna have to, reel it in. But that didn't happen. Ultimately, Tony Khan is a wrestling fan, and he's a fan of professional wrestling. You see it. Anyone who saw him at our show in February saw how he was reacting to the Ospreay and Oku. He was reacting to it like every fan in attendance, right? And that's why I say to every single person who's involved in professional wrestling, if you're gonna be involved in professional wrestling, remember why you got into it in the first place, because it's a thankless business, right? But we all got into it because at its very base level, we are fans of this crazy form of entertainment. And you can say what you like, but no one is going to school, college, university with the idea of, I'm going to fall into a career of a professional wrestler. It's not like, when you're younger, you say, I'm going to be a fireman, I'm going to be a doctor, I'm going to be a nurse. The only reason you want to become a professional wrestler, or you want to be involved in the wrestling business, is because you're a fan of it, because you've been bitten by that bug. And I think that so many people become disillusioned with the business, and so many people lose their passion for the business, and they forget why they got involved in the first place. And that's why myself, I always try to remind myself of that fact. If you look at my my Twitter profile, there's a pinned post on the top of my Twitter, and it's myself as a child playing with WWF wrestling figures. And it says something along the lines of always follow your dreams. Now, that's there for a reason. And the reason that's there is because when times aren't good, and believe me, they're not good a lot when you're doing it at this independent professional wrestling level, you know, when you're swimming against the tide, when the proverbial you know what hits a fan, right?
Yeah.
You have to remind yourself why you got into it in the first place. So I look back at that picture and I say, if that version of me knew I would be doing what I'm doing right now, if he knew I'd be rubbing the shoulders with the people I've rubbed shoulders with, would he be happy? And the answer's a resounding yes. His mind would be absolutely blown. And when you approach stuff with that enthusiasm, like a fan, then it can only produce good results. And listen, you're not always going to get everything right, but you do everything with the best intentions. And to me, I think it's quite refreshing to have someone like Tony Khan, who's at the top of the wrestling company, who's an open wrestling fan. Because for a long time, being a fan of professional wrestling within the wrestling industry was a dirty word.
Yeah.
So I think it's a breath of fresh air, and for him to openly acknowledge his wrestling fandom and for him to talk about his wrestling history, it makes him relatable, it makes him personable. It also opens him up and makes him a target for a lot of people. But you know, he believes in what he's doing, and when you believe in what you're doing, it makes everything a lot easier, and it makes it a lot easier to combat, you know, the negativity and stuff like that. And look, I guess we seem to have been going all over the place from the original question, but again, it's time to touch on, you know, that
Yeah.
whole thing called tribalism within professional wrestling. But look, I always say this: like 80% of the population thinks the thing that we love is ridiculous and is stupid. Do I think they're wrong? Yes, I do. Do I think if they gave it a chance and entered it with an open mind, like they'd go to watch a film at the cinema, or like they'd go to watch an episodic TV drama, do I think they'd be captivated, and do I think they'd be bitten with the bug the same way we have? Absolutely, I do. But unfortunately, there's just no telling some people. You know, you can't. It just doesn't matter what you say. You know that
Yeah.
they can't get their minds around. Why do you like this wrestling stuff, right? So bearing that in mind, we are the minority. There's 20% of people who, and I've just picked those figures out of the sky, but we're the minority, that those 20% of people who love this business. So why are we fighting with each other? Because
Yeah.
we have more in common. It doesn't matter if you like WWE, if you like AEW, if you like RevPro, if you like New Japan. It doesn't matter what wrestling promotion you like and enjoy. The fact is, we all like professional wrestling. And one of the most beautiful things about professional wrestling is it's an international language that anyone can understand. And I think that, again, sometimes we need to check ourselves and remind ourselves of that fact. And don't get me wrong, look, tribalism can be fun to an extent. You know, it's the same as if
Yeah.
you support a football team. It's fun, you know, it's fun to banter the other teams, but ultimately, you know, we have to kind of have some kind of handle on reality, you know.
Yeah.
And the fact is, you know, we all like wrestling, we all like it for a reason, and we all need to remember that fact. And we all need, and this is as a society as a whole, we all need to start respecting each other's opinions.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right, anyway. And you mentioned it there a lot, like just about just the fandom of wrestling and so on. But for a lot of British wrestling fans, RevPro has definitely been something that has kind of like reignited that for fans, with the likes of Oku, with the likes of Luke Jacobs. There's so much young talent in RevPro, and we're going to see that on Summer Sizzler. With the likes of Luke, with the likes of Leon Slater, with the likes of Ricky Knight Jr., with the likes of it's a stacked card with both experienced and young talent alike. And I don't think but also on top of that, there is imports coming in. What has that been like, putting that card together for you, considering you're only just 2 weeks away from the 12th anniversary, to put on such a stacked card? Like you said, it is the most like stacked summer you've had with RevPro. So has there been a lot of pressure with that? Has it been a lot of that, or has it just been kind of like almost like a kid in a toy store, kind of going, "Oh my God, look what I can do"?
Well, ultimately, this is what we do. It doesn't
Yeah,
matter what the venue is. It doesn't matter what the show is. What we do is always try to present the best professional wrestling card possible. What having something like the anniversary show does, you know, a venue the size of a copper box arena, what having something like that does is it enables us the opportunity to build towards a destination. And that's always fun, because it means that anyone who's been able to invest in our shows, be it on RevProOnDemand.com, where we stream everything live and people can catch up on demand, or be it by coming to our shows live, they are able to gain a deeper meaning from everything that's happening, and they'll be able to almost jump on this runaway train on the way to to the Copper Box, on the way to the big show, and they've been able to enjoy all the twists, all the turns, all the ups and the downs, and they'll be able to get a greater meaning from it. But at the same time, from the outsider who doesn't watch Revolution Pro Wrestling, we're trying to present something which is a perfect representation of us as a promotion. Now, what this show, I think, is symbolic of right now is, and I touched it at the start, is a depth of talent we have right now in RevPro, homegrown talent. So the fact that this year's event is being headlined by Michael Oku versus Luke Jacobs is a huge testament to those two guys' abilities, right? Because so often we look at shows like this and we look at the import as the draw. Last year's main event at the anniversary show was Shingo Takagi versus Will Ospreay. And of course, Will Ospreay, despite being homegrown, is one of the greatest exports that this country's ever seen. And as a result of that, it's kind of cheating a little bit, isn't it? Shingo and Will Ospreay, 5 matches, minimum rating 5 stars going into that night. It was a marquee match by every stretch of the imagination. But right now we're presenting a marquee match, but it featured 2 British professional wrestlers, and that's the work we've been putting in. That's the hard work we've been putting in. It's, to me, when I look at all of this, the process began at the start of 2020. And obviously we know the pandemic, it put a stop to many of our plans. However, the big positive we were able to do is rebuild and create new characters and focus on storytelling and really start to lay the foundation for our homegrown talent, which is where we find ourselves at the 12-year anniversary show, where up and down the card you see strong homegrown presence, and as well, of course, it's a very RevPro card in the sense that we also leverage our relationships with people like New Japan Pro Wrestling. Of course, Tomohiro Ishii is going to be competing against JJ Gale with CMLL, our cruiserweight champions from CMLL, Neon, and he'll be defending that cruiserweight championship in what promises to be a spectacular scramble match. So by every sense of the imagination, it's definitely a very RevPro card, because we've always been very much a melting pot of professional wrestling styles, of wrestlers from around the globe. And we've always been all about putting on matches which are exciting, which are fresh, which are new, which are cutting edge, whilst bringing in international talent who are at in their prime, at their peak, and having them compete against some of the best young, exciting, and hungry talent that the UK has to offer. So to me, you may look at it and say, oh, there's not the name value of last year's show, but to me, it's more exciting because these guys are, and again, look, a lot of people got their first taste of Luke Jacobs last year at the Copper Box when he competed against Tomohiro Ishii and won a hell of a professional wrestling match. So those people now know who Luke Jacobs is. People now know who Ricky Knight Jr. is because of that match with Zack Sabre Jr. And let's not forget Zack Sabre Jr. versus Hechicero, which for me, these are the 2 best technical wrestlers in the world, and we get the privilege of seeing them compete live and in person. And it's not many times you get the opportunity to see things like that live and in person, especially in our country. So it's one of those things whereby take advantage of these situations. Don't take for granted the fact that we've got quite literally the 2 best technicians in the world right now, the most exciting, the most innovative technicians, one from Mexico, one from the United Kingdom, but resides in Japan, and they're coming together at the Copper Box Arena before our very eyes, and it's going to be such a special match. Anyone who saw their match in Mexico a month or so ago will understand just how special that match this match is going to be. Hechicero, of course, had that hometown advantage. Here, Zack Sabre Jr. is going to have the hometown advantage. So it's, I'm sure it's going to create an excellent atmosphere. And like I say, that melting pot of professional wrestling styles is what excites me, because we get to tick a lot of boxes. I always say, like a great wrestling show is like a great buffet. It's got a little bit of everything, And I genuinely believe that our anniversary show has got a little bit of everything. So no matter what style of professional wrestling you like, you will find there is something for you on August the 24th. And again, like I said at the start, this is the challenge that we have for every single wrestling show we put on, every single show we produce. But we attack everything with that same mindset of coming from the perspective of a wrestling fan, and I think
Yeah.
that doing that has stood us in good stead, and that's what we continue to plan on doing. So yeah, it's going to be great. And again, just like the anniversary show this weekend at York Hall, very similar in that style. We could have rested on our laurels. Look, we've got MJF versus Michael Oku. That's enough to sell the building out on its own. But that's not our style. We want to put on a top to bottom amazing show. That's a mission statement wherever we go. And that's why you're going to see matches like Trevor Lee versus Luke Jacobs, Robbie X versus Donovan Dijak. It's Ricky Knight Jr. against Azoya. It's just a great occasion. And that's what we try to do each and every single time you see Revolution Pro Wrestling on the marquee. And I genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, believe that if you watch a RevPro show, you're not going to be disappointed. And I think, if you were to look at the resources that we have and what we're able to achieve with so little, it would absolutely blow your minds. So it's a crazy time, and it's exciting time. And I hope you can tell, when you ask me how it is putting this stuff together, it's exciting. And when I think about what could come out of these matches, the possibilities, it's so exciting. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah. And I do want to switch gears a little bit from more the competitive side to a more emotional part of Summer Sizzler. Obviously, unfortunately, we did lose James Castle earlier this summer. The tributes came far and wide for him. At Summer Sizzler, Gideon Gray is going to step into the ring. He posted that very emotional video about how important this match is and how important James Castle was to him. Sorry, I'm just trying to think of a way to phrase this right. Just what has it been like putting that match together, and how important is it to the entirety of the roster really to just have this match in memory of James?
So yeah, it's really important. It's so important to each and every single one of us. And it's probably more important to wrestling fans than they realize as well, because James Castle was a huge part of Revolution Pro Wrestling. He was quite literally one of the first people through the doors at our Portsmouth School of Wrestling, one of the backbones of the Portsmouth School of Wrestling. Many people you see who've come through that school, they owe a huge deal of debt to Jamie, and everything that all the work that he put in. He was a base for so many moves. He was a crash dummy for so many moves of these people coming through, teaching people the right way, showing people the right work ethic. Back in the day, if it wasn't for Jamie, then many of these shows wouldn't happen. He was often, alongside myself, the first one there, the last one out, and that work ethic can't go unnoted. In the ring, he was a fantastic professional wrestler. Outside the ring, he was one of the most genuine human beings. And look, this isn't, I know it's very easy when someone passes, it's very easy to say nice things about them, but I want to stress this isn't one of those occasions. This is one of those things whereby Jamie demanded the respect of every single person around him. He was one of a kind. He is someone who everyone looked up to. He's someone that, he wasn't interested in being one of the cool kids, so to speak. And I personally believe that's why he doesn't get the plaudits he deserves in terms of his in-ring work, because he was never part of that crowd, even though that crowd were desperate for him to be a part of it, because everyone loved hanging out with him. But he was just he was as real as it gets. He would stand by his principles, even if it meant standing on his own. He would often go to bat for me, even though it would be easier to stay quiet, and privately support me. He would publicly support me. And like I say, he's just a unique individual. And without a shadow of a doubt, one of the toughest people I've ever met in my life. Obviously, it's been a rough couple of years for him, and it's just so horrible that someone with so much fight. Look, life's unfair, and I think if this is if there's ever going to be an illustration of that fact, it's this, because, like I say, Jamie was one of the most pure and genuine people you can ever meet, and he didn't deserve any of this. And I just hope, in my mind anyway, and I'm sure obviously in Gideon's mind, in Dan's mind, and in everyone who's been involved with this, we just want to make sure that Jamie is able to leave a mark on this world. And it seems so stupid when it comes down to it. When you think about it, it often blows my mind. I've had this discussion with Jamie many times before as well. Like I'm sometimes I'm putting together cards, I'm booking, and I just kind of think to myself, how ludicrous is this world? How ludicrous is this? The time and effort spent in this attention to detail of what happens when and who says what where and why shouldn't we do this match now? And if anyone could see the just the sheer craziness of the booking process, you'll be like, this guy's crazy, right? And because wrestling in many ways is so insignificant, yet it is so significant at the same time. And I feel that, look, we're saying we're doing a tribute to Jamie, this wonderful human being, with a professional wrestling match. It seems a little bit whacked out, right? However, it's something we all shared a bond over. Like I made a joke. I said, if I ever saw Jamie, like our paths, if it wasn't for wrestling, our paths never would have crossed each other. And if they did, I would have seen him and probably walked to the other side of the road because I'd be scared, right? But wrestling brought us together. Wrestling brought all of us together as a family, and be it now, the people at our training school, our roster, or extend further into the crowd, it's brought us all together. It's made us all cross paths. I wouldn't be speaking to you today if it wasn't for professional wrestling, right? And we all feel through professional wrestling. We've all had those moments where the hairs on the back of our arms stand up. We've all had those moments that make us jump out of our seats. Wrestling makes us feel. And that's what we want to do. We want to feel. We want to feel the energy of James Castle on Sunday at York Hall, and we want to do our bit in ensuring that his legacy lives on. We don't want this to be something whereby, we're very sad about it. We move on. We forget. Obviously life goes on. We're very aware of that fact, but I just feel like we wouldn't be doing Jamie any service whatsoever unless we continue to remember him. We continue to remember his memory, continue to respect the hard work that he put in to making this whole thing possible. And so in many ways, to just make sure that he has been able to leave a mark on this world. Because I think the one thing that we'd all hate more than anything, and kind of as you get older, you kind of have these thoughts a lot more. As you have children, you have these thoughts more. But the one thing we'd hate more than anything is to just be gone, disappeared, and have not made our mark, and I just feel like we will honor his memory in the best way we can. And I'm privileged to be able to be a part of that. And of course, putting the match together, choosing that match was a no-brainer. Two of Jamie's best friends, two of again the early adopters to our wrestling school, and it's going to be tough. Don't get me wrong, but I know everyone in attendance is going to will them through, and I'm sure they're going to do Jamie absolutely proud. So, for me, if you were to ask me of all the things I'm looking forward to on Sunday, it's that tribute to Jamie. And make no mistake, the whole show is dedicated to the memory of James Castle, and I've tried not to use it as something to we've not really talked about it much, because it's not something, as I'm sure Gideon alluded to in his in his piece he did before the camera. We're not trying to use this as a marketing tool. We're not trying to use this to sell tickets. We've got the card. That's what's there to sell the tickets. We're just trying to do something for our friend, and we're just trying to honour him the best way we can. And to me, York Hall was a site of many great moments for James Castle, where he competes against Tenzon and Kojima alongside Shah Samuels, where he competed against Shah Samuels. Some great moments there as a member of the Revolutionists. And then competing in our TV tapings there, Show and Yo, Arrows of Hungary, some just great moments Jamie's had in that building. And I know how much competing at York Hall meant to Jamie. So it is very fitting that we're able to do something there. And like I say, it's just such horrible circumstances to have to do it, this time. And I think that it's certainly, from our perspective, brought everyone closer together, and made us appreciate that little bit more. Obviously, we've all had a tough time this year, and it's. I'm just glad that we're able to be there for each other and be able to present this on Sunday.
And before we move on to the 12th anniversary show as a whole, I do want to just touch on one thing now. For a lot of fans, one thing that jumps out about the RevPro presentation, everything, is the announcing, you and Gideon. It's a very banterish relationship between the pair. Gideon does his best to wind you up, and it is highly entertaining to watch as someone outside watching. And that's something that comes, I imagine, with just time and chemistry, build up chemistry together. And what's it like doing a full show with Gideon? Do you find yourself trying not to break quite a bit with him, because he does say a lot of just?
It's exhausting. It's exhausting. But obviously, we've known each other for a long time now. He's like I say, he's another one of those guys who came through our wrestling school. So we've probably known each other for about 12 years now. And yeah, I think that we have great chemistry together when we're announcing, because it's just natural. We don't share notes. We don't, neither of us collects any notes. We just kind of tell the stories that happen before our eyes. And we just have fun. We just have fun. That's what wrestling's all about. I said when I started Revolution Pro Wrestling, one of the big things I wanted to do was create an environment which was fun for everyone, be it to be live there in person or be it watching on demand. I hope we can convey some of that energy across via the on-demand platform, because we genuinely have fun doing what we're doing. And you'll hear the odd swear word here and there. You'll see us jump out our seats. Like, actually, I was doing commentary with Leighton Buzzard in Coventry, and we were on a raised platform, and Leighton Buzzard got so excited by it was a Sunshine Machine versus True and Lacey match. He got so excited, he fell backwards.
Oh no!
Bear in mind, he just had a surgery.
Yeah.
He fell backwards off the chair. And it was great. Once I realised that he wasn't hurt and he hadn't hurt any of my equipment, it was great. But like we genuinely get invested in the matches. We genuinely get suckered into the matches because we're wrestling fans. I feel like commentating with Gideon. Gideon's definitely my best announced partner, and I do genuinely really enjoy it. Yes, he has been able to break me several times. I will note that some of those times was when he was fresh new back to the commentary, and I was kind of out of practice with being able to deal with his nonsense, and now I feel like I've kind of been able to get my shield up a bit more. It's a lot rarer he's been able to get to me, but yeah, like I say, it's a fun environment. We want to create that fun environment for people, and we want people to be able to be like, hey, this seems like something where we can all just go and we can bring our mates and we can have fun, and we don't need to be embarrassed to be wrestling fans. And I think the commentary is, in many ways, it's traditional wrestling commentary, but we call stuff like we see it, and we don't try to insult people's intelligence. And I hope that, like I said, I just hope that comes across. And like I said, we're not trying to be anything that we're not. We're just trying to be natural, and just having fun. And like I say, anyone who sees me, so you see me before the shows, I'm often tired. I remember the one show recently. Oh my goodness! I was so tired. I was drinking coffee. I was trying to wake up, and I just was going through stuff with people before the show, and I was just like, I'm sorry, just give me a second, and then we do the show, we do the commentary. Obviously, we get the energy from the live crowd, the wrestling we see before us, just the fun we have on the commentary. By the end of the show, I'm bouncing off the walls, you know,
Yeah.
and he's the same person. And that is the beauty of pro wrestling. And that's exactly what we try to achieve and what we try to create. So I'm pleased that you can you can feel that, and I hope that more people can feel that as well, because you know, it's all very innocent, everything we do, you know, and it's um, yeah, there's no motive. There's no sales pitch. You know, we're not even selling stuff. You know, when when we were doing this commentary, we're just calling it as we're seeing it. We're trying to talk like we're obviously calling the moves, but we're talking like bickering friends who are watching the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, and then I think it's very much like, you know, you've got those friends you watch the boxing with, or the MMA with, or the
Yeah.
football with. You know, I wouldn't be able to watch any of those things with Gideon because he has no knowledge of any sport whatsoever.
Mhm.
But we were able to do that with wrestling, and that's yeah, is fun, and it makes the whole the whole process a lot more enjoyable. And however crappy my day is, I know that at least for a couple of hours, myself along with all the fans are going to be able to kind of just get lost in the action, have a good time, and then worry about everything else tomorrow.
Yeah. And moving on to the 12th anniversary show, it's a stacked show, as we said. There's still a lot of stuff that's up in the air regarding it, but you can see in the excitement, especially on social media, whenever there's a new announcement, even a new person added to the Cruiserweight Scramble, as you mentioned, there's a lot of excitement about this card. But one thing personally I'm very excited about to be able to see is Ethan Allen make his not well his comeback, yes and no. It's so good to see him. Like, for a lot, he was out for so long, and he's going to be on this Copper Box show. He's facing off with Connor Mills in what I'm sure will be a barn burner match. But for a brief time period, it looked like that wasn't even going to be a possibility with his recent issues. How does it feel to see, like, someone who you've worked with Ethan in the long run, to see him finally get back in there and finally get the chance to show off his talent on a bigger stage?
I mean, I think it's very important, really, because I think that for Ethan, like you say, like he never knew if this day would come,
Yeah.
and obviously he's made a comeback to the ring. There was always going to be trepidation. There was going to be question marks. Can he still do this? How's the knee going to hold up, etc. And so far, he's passed those tests. You know, as he's been going, and I look at that. The last match he had for us was in Sheffield. We had a Revolution tag, and I look at the closing stretch between himself and Zazoya, and I know he's been talking about being in a different gear, but I feel like a lot of that has been Ethan just putting it out there into the atmosphere almost, because I know that it's impossible to go that length of time without having a degree of ring rust. It's impossible to go that length of time without having doubts in the back of your mind, without you know, being able to freely do exactly what you were able to do before, and knowing the fact that in that 2 years, again, there's the added pressure. In that 2 years, his tag team partner Luke Jacobs has gone from strength to strength to strength to a position where he's now main eventing the card, which could well be the biggest show in Revolution Pro Wrestling history. And that stuff, I'm sure he is happy for Luke. I'm not trying to stir the pot in any way, shape, or form. You know, I'm not doing that promoter's trick of you know, saying this is what we want to see, because the Young Guns together are a phenomenal tag team, and the last thing we want to see is them split up with each other. But you know, but you know that he's been watching everything that Luke Jacobs has been doing, and you know he's been watching the progression that Luke Jacobs has been making, and you know he's been itching at the bit to get back to it. And I feel like if you look at those closing stages against Zoya in that Revolution tag match, that was the first time I was like, the old Ethan Allen is definitely back, you know, and that's a very, very exciting thing, because he is one of those guys, and I didn't even work with him for long, you know, and I think that that's perhaps a testament to Ethan Allen, because
Mhm.
I only started working with him. He was on the second show back from the pandemic. We still had to be socially distanced when he came back, when he debuted for us. So that, you know, tells you, you know, when it was in terms of coming back in front of live crowds. But himself and Luke Jacobs were two of the guys that I had pinpointed and identified as guys that, you know, could well be one of the backbones of this thing, alongside your Robbie X's, Ricky Knight Jr.'s, Michael Oku's, etc. Ethan Allen and Luke Jacobs were right up there with them, and I didn't get to work with him for long at all. But think about the moments that that Ethan Allen had in a Revolution Pro Wrestling ring in the lead up to that injury. You know, so many moments. And then when you look at it and say that was only across like maybe a 6-7 month span, right? And that tells you all you need to know about Ethan Allen, because he made those moments in that short amount of time, and he made such an impression on myself, that, you know, the second he got injured, I said, look, listen, the second you're ready to come back, you're coming back for us. You know, we're going to make it.
Yeah.
You know, I just promise you, don't lose faith. You know, because you see a lot in this industry, a lot of young wrestlers who are destined for big things, and all it takes is for so look, you can say all it takes is for an injury, but all it takes is for a wrong decision going left instead of right. You know, using an injury to then be like, oh, I give up. You know, instead of using it to power you forward, all it takes is for making those bad decisions, and you derail your progress and you derail any potential that you had. And there's so many wrestlers that we've looked at over the years who've been the next Will Ospreay, or the next, even going back further, the next Doug Williams, the next Will Ospreay, you know, the next Zack Sabre Jr., who've never been able to fulfill that potential. And it's purely because they've, you know, as happens in young careers, you have certain points where you have to make certain decisions, and sometimes people make the wrong decisions, but it's the way you respond to those decisions and come back from them. And when you're injured, when you're at your lowest, many times that is a determining factor on how you're going to move forward. You know, so I felt I had to reach out to Ethan straight away and say, listen, we will do whatever we can to get you back to where you need to be, just so he knew that there was someone that would go to bat for him. And I'm not saying, I'm sure he had other people reach out to him in a similar fashion as well. But, you know, I just felt it was so important for him to understand the potential he had, to understand that I still thought of him as a top guy. And really, yes, he's been back, but now he's back to, in his mind, his best. And can he surpass that? That's the next task for him. But it's a huge milestone for him, because you can imagine how hard it was for him. Look, again, I don't think we all try to forget COVID. We all try to forget how difficult that was on all of us, right? And really being able to get back to those shows was a huge milestone in and of themselves for us. But then when we're able to then get to venues like York Hall, which Ethan got a York Hall in, but like, you know, but venues like York Hall, venues like Crystal Palace, and of course, like the Copper Box, you know, they are what we were all dreaming of when the whole world was shut down, and Ethan was chomping at the bit to get there. Finally, is free into the world, and then building up all this momentum, and then all of a sudden, just like that, that momentum's derailed, and then he's having to watch everyone around him be able to do all those things. But he's kept true to himself. He's kept that work ethic throughout, despite setbacks. He's kept getting up, and he's there. He's good to go, and this is a huge, huge milestone for him, competing against Connor Mills. And when you talk about someone who's up their game, you have to talk about Connor Mills. He's again someone who has just found himself as of late. He's really found his true identity in the ring, and that's not a knock in any way, shape, or form on Connor Mills before, because Connor Mills has always been just a phenomenal professional wrestler. And alongside Michael Oku in that Destination Everywhere tag team, he created so many moments. But you know, the highlight, the spotlight, if you will, was always on Michael Oku, and Connor Mills felt he was in that shadow somewhat, and now he's stepped out of that shadow. He's become his own man. He's gradually transformed everything about himself, his in-ring style, his appearance, the way he carries himself, the way he talks, the way he walks, everything about himself he's kind of transformed, and he's peaking at the right time. And we look at the wars he's had with people like Leon Slater, with Trent Seven, and of course that epic match he had at High Stakes against Zack Sabre Jr. It's safe to say Connor Mills has absolutely arrived. And for me, he's a perfect opponent right now for Ethan Allen. They're two hungry professional wrestlers. They both got a bit of a chip on their shoulder because, look, despite the fact I'm giving you all these plaudits about Connor Mills, don't think for 1 second that Connor Mills doesn't believe that he belongs in that main event. You know, he wants to steal the show just as much as Ethan Allen wants to steal the show, you know, and when you have wrestlers like that, who are that hungry, who are that excited, it creates fireworks. It's contagious. And that's why this is such an exciting match. It's a milestone match for both wrestlers for very different reasons. And it's something that, like you say, anyone who's followed the career of Ethan Allen can be so proud that we're getting the chance to see this moment, because it has been stop-start, it has been stop-start, and it has been touch and go, but we're there, we're ready to go, and it's going to be just a fantastic occasion. And like you say, one of those probably overlooked matches when you look at the card, but for anyone who follows Revolution Pro Wrestling, they know it's going to be an exciting match. For anyone who's followed either man's career, know it's going to be an exciting match, and they're going to go out there with that mindset of, you might not who we know, because this is the thing, right? Because we're exposed to so much of a wider audience than we normally are, because this has a potential. Again, we're tracking alongside last year's show, which I think is a big achievement when you think about the numbers for All In being lower, when you think about the fact that it's not our first time at the Copper Box, when you think about the fact it's not Shingo versus Ospreay as a main event, to be tracking alongside that event, I think is a huge achievement. There's every chance we're going to surpass that event, and this is going to become the biggest show in Revolution Pro Wrestling history. And because of that fact, there's a lot of eyeballs on this show that wouldn't normally be there. So there's going to be a lot of people who don't know who Ethan Allen and Connor Mills are, and they no doubt will be going into this match with that mindset of, hey, you might not know who we are right now, but come the end of this thing, you're going to know exactly who we are. And it's that sense of competition, iron sharpens iron. It's that sense of competition that generates these fantastic cards of action, which really results in the wrestling fans being the real winners in this scenario. And believe me when I say the wrestling fans, I'm terming myself in with that bracket.
And with the 12th anniversary show, like I said, there is a couple of question marks on that show. Like they said, Cruiserweight Scramble. But the biggest question mark would have to be the women's title match. Obviously, Dani Luna was originally scheduled to face off with Stephanie Vaquer at the event, but unfortunately, Stephanie did sign with WWE, and as such, you were forced to remove her from the match. Is there a pressure to kind of announce an opponent of equal stature to Vaquer, given that she was an international star? And have you come to a decision on who will replace Vaquer in this match? Yeah.
So there's a lot of moving pieces. I'll say that much, but we've had a lot of very positive conversations. We think we know what we're doing. Everything's I say with wrestling a lot of the time, until it's announced, it's all in Stephanie Vaquer's occasion, sometimes even when it is announced, but until it's announced, everything's a liquid situation, and we move and adapt. But we have made it very, very clear that the women's championship match is a very, very important match on the card. We can do everything in our power to ensure that there is something absolutely befitting of the occasion. We're seeing this as a huge occasion, a huge opportunity, and we are going to make sure that that there's no wrestling fans are going to leave the Copper Box disappointed by what we present. Of course, we are going to announce as much as we can in advance. We don't anticipate it's going to be one of those occasions where the women's championship match gets announced on the day or anything like that. So, so wrestling fans watching this, you don't have to wait much longer to find out what we're going to be doing. But yeah, it's one of those situations we find, and it's just one of those things with professional wrestling. Like I say, everything, we have to be liquid, we have to be ready to move, we have to adapt, we have to move on, and we have to take any negative or any perceived negative, we have to take it and turn it into a positive. And that's realistically what we've been doing since day one. So I'm not worried about that match at all. I'm very excited by it. I think that our women's division has a huge deal of depth right now, as you know, the whole roster up and down. I think the Cutthroat Collective have flipped the women's division on its head, and then there's many people standing up against them, which has created again that real sense of competition and something that had been lacking really. I mean, I've been on record in saying that the issue is very hard to create a division when it's just champion versus challenger all the time, champion versus challenger, maybe number one contenders match, and what we've been able to do over the last year or so since. And again, you could perhaps look at the anniversary show last year as maybe a starting point, with the Women's Battle Royal, which opened the show last year. Maybe you could go back a bit further than that, but I think what we've been able to do is start to really build that foundations of that division, and I think over the next few months, you're really going to start to see it flourish, and it's going to be far more than champion versus challenger, as we look to kind of continue to create compelling and intriguing stories, and the talent is there. The talent is absolutely there. So I'm excited, and I'm excited for both women's matches on August 24th. And I think after this weekend, a lot will be there'll be a lot more. The I guess the final destination of the Copper Box will become a lot clearer. You say those shows, it's like essentially like the Raw before WrestleMania type deal. We always say those big London shows, the shows we do at the 229 before the big events, Crystal Palace or the York Hall. There's always like a frenetic energy about them, like no other. It's almost like the Wild West. And I expect this Sunday to be no different. And like I say, coming out of this Sunday, a lot more of a card for the anniversary show will become a lot clearer. And I think it's from that point, there's 2 weeks to go. We've got the final show before coming up the following Sunday in Southampton on August the 18th. After this Sunday, 2 weeks to go till the Copper Box. All roads lead to the Copper Box, full steam ahead. It's time for, if you're not excited already, it's time to get very excited. So, and again, like I say, whatever it looks like on paper, I promise you, we're going to deliver 10 times more in person because, everyone's amped up. And like I say, when everyone goes into something with that mindset, special things happen.
And we've talked about pretty much every match on the 12th anniversary card so far. There's only one match we haven't talked about, and a match that I'm very excited for. Tomohiro Ishii is going to be on the card. It's going to be facing the heart and soul of RevPro and JJ Gale. And JJ Gale is someone who, this year, he's very much similar to Luke Jacobs in that he's really kind of caught fire. He's got a lot of momentum behind him. Fans are very much behind him as the heart and soul. And when I spoke to him in an interview earlier this year, you could really get the sense that he lives and breathes RevPro as a promotion. And I'm just wondering what that's been like for you to have someone like JJ on your roster who really does live for the promotion. And of course, how you're feeling heading into this massive match. Because like you said, Ishii was on last year's card, and that Luke Jacobs match is what's propelled Luke into the position where he's one of the top names in British wrestling.
Yeah, well, look, I feel that with JJ, he's very similar. He's a type of wrestler that I want to be around. In terms of Revolution Pro Wrestling, and JJ sees it because obviously JJ's a member of our training school, so he sees it firsthand. A lot of the wrestlers don't have the opportunity to see exactly what goes into making each of these events happen. The work, the struggle. When things go wrong, having to pick ourselves back up, learning from our mistakes. He sees that on a ground floor level on a week in, week out basis. And I think that's what creates the bond, because he can respect the effort that goes into this thing. And I think that he very much as a wrestler wants to have that same ethic, in terms of, he wants to scratch and claw and fight his way to the top as well. The same way that Revolution Pro Wrestling tries to as a promotion. So the heart and soul moniker that he's kind of been going by, it really resonates. And he's one of those, again, there's certain wrestlers, it doesn't matter what your ability is. For lack of a better term, if you're a prick, I don't want to work with you, right? And there are some wrestlers who are like that, and they might have all the talent in the world, but when they behave in a certain way and whatever, you don't want to work with them. Self-entitled, they're got bad attitudes. How you read about stuff like that all the time, right? And you can have all the talent in the world, but if you don't have the right attitude, then it's not something that you want around. And when you're at our level, when we are scratching and clawing for every penny, every crumb, every bit of attention we are fighting for, you have to have a group of people who've got the same mindset as you have, right? And no one's ever going to have the exact same mindset because no one's invested everything in it like I have. So, I don't expect everyone to, drop everything and die for this thing, right? But you have to recognize we're all on a team. We're all working together. We're all pulling in the same direction. We all want the same thing, and that same thing is to enhance the standards of British professional wrestling. That is to get as much attention on British professional wrestling as possible, and that is to grow Revolution Pro Wrestling as much as humanly possible. And that's why you see great ambassadors for RevPro, people like Michael Oku, people like JJ, who will go out on a limb and will talk with their heart on their sleeves about how much Revolution Pro Wrestling means to them. That's why Will Ospreay always talks passionately about Revolution Pro Wrestling. That's why Zack Sabre Jr. still comes back. Even though he doesn't have to at this stage in his career, Zack Sabre Jr. still comes back. Zack Sabre Jr. still helps and tutors young talent. And when people see someone like Will Ospreay do that, see someone like Zack Sabre Jr. do that, they're like, hang on a minute, these are the guys I'm watching on TV. These are the guys that I'm watching perform around the world, and they're taking time out their schedule. Even to this day, we see Will Ospreay backstage at our shows, giving out advice, etc. And when that happens, those young wrestlers, they see that, they receive that advice, and it's special for them. And it makes them want to push. And almost like you said earlier about, Will Ospreay passing the baton to Michael Oku, it's almost like Michael Oku now has that responsibility to do that to someone else, to look at those young wrestlers. And we've seen him take wrestlers like early on, Leon Slater. And don't get me wrong, Leon Slater is some kind of freak and has, propelled himself to all kinds of levels of greatness. But you saw it with Leon Slater. You saw it with Cameron Kai, who, again, crazy, considering his age. You're seeing it with Zazoya, another absolute freak. And a can't miss future star in this business. And you see Michael Oku, the way he mentors these guys, mentors these talents, right? And you see it in front of the camera, we see it behind the camera, and they take it on there as a responsibility. And the hope is those wrestlers will then do the same thing. And it's very similar to JJ Gale. And JJ Gale is one of these guys who's come in, he's got the right attitude, the right mindset, wanting to push this whole thing forward. And when you have people who've got that mindset, and people will be like, why? Like, so there are times when, so as JJ, look, I think JJ Gale has vindicated all my decisions in my use of him throughout the course of the last 5, 6, 7 years, whatever it's been. And because he started off as a contender, he worked his way up, he earned his colours, he became a part of the main roster, he teamed with Callum Newman, and then from that point, he's found himself as a heart and soul. And I think he's vindicated every single one of those decisions, because I always say, when you're working with a young roster, sometimes you have to take risks. Sometimes you can use like a young talent who's not polished, and some more established wrestlers might look at and be saying, how come he's getting that spot and I'm not getting that spot? And the answer is, well, because he's hungry, he's determined, he's got the desire, he's got the right mindset. And how's he going to learn without getting out there and being put in a position where he can make mistakes, right? So we've been thinking about tomorrow the whole time, and you can see that. Really, look, I'm just going to go out and say, look, the contenders division was a big start of this, but realistically speaking, since the pandemic, you can see us taking risks on wrestlers, putting them in positions you wouldn't expect them to be in, and putting them outside their comfort zone. And sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes they slip up. But it's not about how you fall. It's how you pick yourself back up. You learn more from losing than you do from winning. And I genuinely believe that JJ Gale has learned a lot of lessons across his career. We always say in commentary, win or learn, win or learn. And that doesn't just necessarily mean win or learn in terms of a result of a professional wrestling match, right? And there's a lot of lessons to be learned. How you respond to each one of those lessons dictates how you progress, and something that I think is very key to see about JJ Gale. One of the beauties of RevPro On Demand, you can look at his journey, you can look at his evolution on RevProOnDemand.com, and you can see as he's adding things to his repertoire, as he's becoming more sure of himself, as he's not rushing anymore, as you know, as he's developing his own move set, developing an identity, you know, growing out a ridiculous moustache and mullet, but he is becoming himself. And through each step of that journey, you're seeing the people get closer and closer to him. You're seeing the people build that connection with him. And it's got it to the extent whereby we're putting JJ Gale against Tomohiro Ishii at the 12-year anniversary show, and there's not a single person who sat there and go, why are you doing that?
Yeah.
Instead, people are rubbing their hands and saying, I'm excited. And if you look at how far JJ Gale's come from that contest against Kosei Fujita at the 11-year anniversary show to right now, leading up to a 12-year anniversary show, the JJ Gale that's walking into the copper box 12 months later is night and day. It's a different animal altogether. And I believe that match against Fujita was another one of those learning experiences for JJ, you know, and I think that without that, and without that journey, he wouldn't be the wrestler he is today. So he has the mindset now. We've seen the tension between himself and Luke Jacobs. You heard the words from his mouth. I'm going to do the thing you can't do. I'm going to beat Tomohiro Ishii. Those are the words that came out of his mouth. Now, realistically speaking, he wants to one-up Luke Jacobs. He wants to have the better match against Tomohiro Ishii. He wants people to be talking about him, not Luke Jacobs. It's a competitive rivalry between Jacobs and Gale. And yes, Luke Jacobs might be one step further on in his journey, but JJ Gale is right at his heels. And you know for a fact that when you look at JJ Gale, you're seeing someone who could be that future main eventer that everyone looks up to, a future undisputed British heavyweight champion. But again, he's on this journey at the moment, and the decisions he makes, and the lessons he learns will dictate where he winds up. So it's a hugely exciting time, and it's a hugely rewarding time to see the hard work that you put in to these people. And look, I take no credit whatsoever. All I do is I give people a platform, I give people feedback, I give people advice. It's up to them to act on that. You know, it's up to them to display that work ethic. But I take huge pleasure in seeing people like that succeed. And it's you know, it's going to be one of those moments. It's going to be one of those proud moments at the Copper Box, until you hear me throwing out swear words as Ishii's knocking him left, right, and center around the Copper Box. But you know, it's going to be one of those moments where I'm absolutely proud of him. But without a shadow of a doubt, he absolutely deserves this stage, and he will prove he belongs on August the 24th.
And I just do have one more question for you, Andy, before I do let you go. We mentioned earlier about James Castle and the effect he's had on RevPro and British wrestling in general. But another person who we unfortunately lost in the last year is Mad Curtis Chapman. He was with RevPro from nearly day one. He was there from 2014, I believe, 2013. His loss was one that was felt throughout wrestling, like he was one of the brightest lights in wrestling. And whenever I spoke to any talent to cross paths with him, worked with him, were friends with him, I'd like to ask him just for a memory, or just to help his memory stay alive. And I was just wondering, as someone who worked with him for so long, is there any way you could narrow it down to one memory or just a feeling in general? Every time I ask the same thing is said, it's hard to narrow it down, but just even one off the top of your head.
Look, I think it is almost impossible to kind of narrow it down to one memory.
Yeah.
But what I will say is a few things. And the shock me saying a few things. But like the first thing is that yes, he was known for his Mad Kurt character, and he was one of the funniest people you could ever know. No one could wind me up like him. I mean, you spoke about Gideon being able to press my buttons. Like Mad Curtis could press my buttons on another level, like another level. But like he was known as this crazy character, but he was also one of the finest technicians in terms of wrestling. And I think that it's sad that often gets overlooked. And he would often say to me, he's like, Andy, I am a good wrestler as well. I can wrestle. I am very good at this professional wrestling. Right. And if you look back across his career, He was a contender. He was a super contender. He was a cruiserweight champion. And you look back at those matches, and you'll see he was actually telling the truth. He was actually a very good professional wrestler, and he showed glimpses of it in his Mad Kurt character as well. And I think one of the things that he was able to do with the Mad Kurt character in terms of his matches, if you watch his matches, if you watch his match with Will Ospreay, if you watch his match with Eddie Kingston, some of the more high profile matches. But if you really watch any Mad Kurt match, he was able to contextualize the ha within some great professional wrestling. And I think that that's very important to remember as well. And I think it's almost doing his memory a disservice to remember him simply as that funny character, because there was way more sides to his personality than that. So that's one thing that I'd love to kind of make clear about him. And in terms of more memories, that sometimes every now and again, myself and Mad Kurt will do commentary together. There are certain and what he was able to bring out of me, like I don't even know how. Like I'd just become an absolute child around him. I would want to impress him. I would be joking with like again, like not. It's very hard to make me joke around on my job, but Curtis was able to do that. And there's certain shows, for example, there's definitely a show in Huntingdon which was never released because myself and Curtis were doing commentary on it, and we were just being completely immature throughout the whole broadcast, and I never got round to editing it. But yeah, like I feel like that's my lasting memory of him. The fact that he'd be able to get that, well, he'd be able to wind me up like no one else's business, and and that this is both in and out the ring, and he'd be able to bring out that immature side. But everyone was when Mad Kurt was around, everyone was in performance mode, so to speak, because everyone wanted to try and make him like if you could make Mad Kurt laugh, right? You felt like you'd done a good job,
Yeah.
because he was like the master of comic timing and all of that stuff. So yeah, those are my kind of my big overarching memories of him. And he's someone again who came from our wrestling school. Came as a child, like a literal child. Like you think you knew him when he just needed a sandwich. Like I knew him when he just needed something to eat. We needed to drip feed him or something to get him going. But yeah, he defied all odds. If you saw him when he first came to our wrestling school, you probably would have written him off and been like, he's not going to make it. But kept turning up week after week after week, and eventually he made it. And because of his young age as well, he became the coach of our kids class. So
Yeah.
and I think that's something again that people don't realize. Like he used to coach our kids classes, and he gave the gift of professional wrestling to so many young people and helped so many young people as well. And that's something I believe that should be championed. And like I say, just in general, it's been a tough year for all of us, particularly our Portsmouth gang, so to speak. And Curtis, look, Jamie was the elder statesman who everyone looked up to. Curtis had many different roles within the friendship groups. Some people he was like a son. To some people he was like an annoying little brother. And then he bridged the gap between the next group as well, where he was the big brother that they all looked up to. So, he was, quite the character, and someone who, much like Jamie, meant so much to everyone. And it's just gutting, and it's like I say, like this is one of those things, and whereby we're going to be doing more. Obviously, we had the match to honour him at one of our shows last year, St. Leo's show, just shortly after, when everything was very raw. We didn't have time to think about things really, but we're going to be doing more to honour Curtis moving forward. We're going to be doing more to honour Jamie moving forward. We won't let those two guys be forgotten. But it's like I say, it's just it's a reality check to everyone, and we just need to learn not to take each other for granted. There were many times, and I spoke about this at depth with Jamie, like whereby we would be cursing ourselves, he would be cursing me, and we would be hating the moment, but then we looked back at the moment fondly, and we would give anything to have those moments back. So really, it's a lesson not to take anything for granted, not to miss up on any opportunities. You know, I was more guilty of it than any. Like everyone would like, you know, I kind of, I don't know, like myself, like I've always been business, 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 work, 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 and people would be like, you know, I'm gonna extend this invitation to you just so you can say no. That would be the kind of a running gag, you know. So you know, I'm as guilty as anyone of not taking in the moments and not looking to the side of me instead of straight ahead. And I think that it's a real reminder to us all not to take these times for granted, and to understand that we are living some very blessed times right now. And yeah, it's horrible. I can't emphasize enough how horrible it is, and how bad it makes you feel. And you know, it's, I don't know, like all we can do a lot of the time is just keep plugging forward, and trying to do their memories proud, but also just trying to give yourself some semblance of sanity by plugging forward, and putting everything you can into this, but also by trying to take lessons, and appreciating what you have around you, appreciating the people you have around you, and appreciating these moments that we're living right now, and knowing we're never going to get these moments back. So we need to try. We need to, whatever, you know, however hard it may be, we need to try to take a step back and enjoy those moments. And you know, I sometimes I feel guilty. You know, I felt a burden on my shoulders. You know, seeing the fight that Jamie was going through for 4 years, fighting against this cruel and nasty disease, and then you know, seeing him and talking with him, and then going off and having a good time, and feeling guilty about that. But that's obviously that's not the way he'd want you to feel, and that's not the way you should feel. But you know, we would be doing his memory a disservice if we didn't make the most of these moments, if we weren't concentrating on having a good time, if we weren't concentrating on making the most of each and every second in this world, because it's not a long time we're here for. And I hate that I have to even be talking about things like this. I just want to be going wrestling, wrestling, wrestling. But this is real, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and like I say, like wrestling and real life intertwines in so many weird and crazy ways. But above all, wrestling provides us with that sense of camaraderie, the sense of togetherness, the sense of understanding. And look, I'm not saying we're all friends. You know, I'm not saying, look, I'm not your friends. This is the first time we've ever spoken to each other, but we've got a bond through professional wrestling.
Yeah.
We've got something that we've got in common with one another. We can sit in the same venue. We can enjoy the same things. You know, we can talk endlessly about this crazy world. And I think that wrestling is a great medication. It's a great escape. It's a great release. And there's a reason why we all love it. And I've got wrestling to thank for bringing me Curtis, for bringing me Jamie, bringing those guys into my world. And I look at everyone around me, and I'm absolutely privileged to be able to share space with them. And you know, and that's why, you know, it fills me with so much joy to see people like your JJ Gales making it, like your Michael Oku's, Ethan Allen. You know, everyone's got a story to tell. Everyone's got struggles that they're going through. But ultimately, our measuring stick right now is just this crazy sport, professional wrestling. And again, when you look at it, it's most base level guys in pants rolling around with each other. Blows my mind to think how something so simplistic,
Yeah.
ridiculous can mean so much and can do so much for so many people. And whether it's creating those memories at live shows, be it through the action you're seeing in the ring, because wrestling makes you feel, you know, it makes you feel like nothing else. And it's actions in the ring, the camaraderie between the people backstage, the camaraderie between the fans, just everything about it, it makes you feel. And that's so special, you know. So that's it, you know. It's a beautiful thing. And I appreciate everyone who's listened to this, everyone who's watching, everyone who comes to our shows, everyone who buys tickets, everyone who watches on demand, because you're allowing us to be able to continue to do this. And at this level, That's exactly what it is. Every ticket, every on-demand buy, one fan at a time. It means so much to our survival to the next day. And yeah, and that's kind of it, you know.
And Andy, you've been an absolute pleasure to chat to today. And before I do let you go, do you want to let people know where they can follow you on social media and what's coming up on the RevPro calendar?
Yeah, so revolutionprowrestling.com is a website. It's got the links to shoprevpro.com, revproondemand.com. Hopefully those titles are pretty self-explanatory. One's an online shop where you can get official New Japan, RevPro, and CMOL merchandise. The RevPro on Demand service, we stream every single show live and and then it goes up on demand shortly after. The live shows are included within the price of subscription, which is like £7 or £8, something like that. It's a very cheap price. There's no commitments. If you subscribe now, you're obviously going to get this Sunday at York Hall. You're going to get the anniversary show included. You're going to get Southampton included. You're going to get our shows in Berlin included. You're going to get our show at 229 included. So, you know, within your first month, you know, so it's not bad going for that 1 month subscription. Whilst you're there, if you plan on only being there for a month, stick around, check out the back catalogue, see what we produce on a regular basis, you know, because the back catalogue it's just got so many hidden gems, so many treasures just hidden in that back catalogue that you should definitely check out, and it will keep you occupied for a very long time. And yeah, and as far as socials, at RevPro UK on Twitter, and my personal one is at A Quildan, AQUILDAN. So yeah, just check us out, keep supporting, and don't think your support is unnoticed. We appreciate your support. We appreciate any feedback, positive and negative, as long as the negative is constructive. And yeah, it's like I say, like I'm just having a fun time doing something that I'd always wanted to do as a child. And I thank everyone listening, watching for letting me continue to do that, because without you guys, I wouldn't be able to do that. And I make no secret of that fact, and I'm under no illusions whatsoever. So I appreciate the position I'm in. It's a privilege and it's an honor. And hopefully we'll keep repaying you with some great pro wrestling. And yeah, just check it out. Check it out, revolutionprowrestling.com.
And guys, definitely go and check out RevPro. They are, like I said at the very beginning, they are one of the best promotions in the world. Definitely one of the best promotions in Europe. If you are new to Fightful, guys, make sure to subscribe. Check out our website, Fightful.com. Subscribe to Fightful. Select $5 for the most content in wrestling news. And yeah, guys, see you all in the next one.